Thank you very, very much. No, it's an absolute pleasure to be here. Just it's a week of product. I was running a face-to-face CSPO today, and I'm doing a virtual one tomorrow. So I'm in the right mindset, and it was great listening to the other sessions. By the way, it's inspiring. I love the fact that there's always connections and there's a synthesis at play. So if any of you have dialed in and been listening to the other stories, it's great to hear. And if you don't believe me, my talk's all about storytelling. If you don't believe me, listen to the last inspiring speaker who said you've got to be a good storyteller. So there we go. But no, some great stuff. And yeah, no, it's an absolute pleasure to be here. So I shall share my screen. And if it's okay, I don't want to be too disruptive, but there's opportunities for questions sort of in between the talk. So I might grab some of your questions throughout as well. Fantastic. Right, there we go. So hopefully you can see my screen. There we go. There it is. So but very grand, with all these titles, sometimes you try to make them pop just to get the crowds looking. But essentially, the idea of DNA, that where we come is that if you think about DNA, it's got all the instructions that a living organism needs to grow. And just listening to some of the fantastic talks that were taking place, and just to sort of get myself in the mode, I'm sure John is similar. I was just doing a little workout in the garage whilst I was listening in, but it's all around growth. And this sort of project to product mentality is all about how can we sort of encourage growth. So very inspiring what people are saying. So that's kind of essentially where this is going, and that's the title anyway. That's where we're going with that. So as far as me, I'm a certified Scrum trainer, and I'm proud that I came through the product owner route. So I think I'm the second of all the CSTs that came down the product route, and I'm thankful to some amazing guides in the community that helped me in my journey. And I'll give some kudos to John Miller, who was one of my people that I co-trained with. So I'm a CST, and I'm really passionate about all things agile and all things product. And my background's very mixed. I was initially a design graduate back in the 2000s. I've been a business analyst, I've been a project manager, and I've been in environments that think they're embracing agile ways of working. One of them before I joined the agile world, and have worked as a scrum master, but more so as a product owner. But roles aside, or may I say accountabilities, it doesn't matter. Anyone that's dialing in now, this is not just for product owners. This is about a product owner mindset. And so whatever you do, whatever your title, I hope this resonates with you. So I'm an agile enthusiast, and I'm a business visualizer, which is a grand way of saying I like to draw pictures. Design thinking is a little bit controversial. If you think about human-centered design and design thinking, I think it's misleading to some, and sometimes people have there's an air of caution with it, because people assume it's very linear. So I'd like to kind of sort of nip that myth. And you know what? Global speaker. If you've done a talk in more than one country, you can call yourself a global speaker. So I'm going to take that one. Yeah, and I'm a storyteller, and I've created I've sort of illustrated a few books, and I create what these little things called agile nuggets. So feel free to reach out, and I'll put a link of the agile nuggets. I don't know if I can put it on the mural or something, but I'll share them with you. And they're little nuggets of information. Recently did one with Chet Hendrickson. And I work for a company called C Prime, where I work within the EMEA learning team. Enough of me. I want to sort of talk about the narrative of, I'm talking about product endurance, but I also want to sort of tell the story of product ownership and some of those key elements and factors that makes this accountability so important. And everything I've ever done is always been around storytelling. So as well as being a design graduate, probably one of the most important milestones of my life was working within social care, where I use visualization as an enabler to help people with reading and writing difficulties to communicate. Incredibly valuable. And in fact, just being in the environment of social care really made me realize that the importance of driving value. And so I'll come back to that later on. But storytelling is so important, and just listening to what some of these talks have been, what a lot of these people have been saying on these talks, like Ralph. And so somebody was mentioning around, the entrepreneur, a product owner being very much like an entrepreneur, right? And I totally agree. The difference between a CEO and an entrepreneur is that a CEO wants to build a company, an entrepreneur wants to solve problems and engage and inspire. And that's exactly what a product owner needs to do. So look, you very busy people that have had, late nights or it's early mornings. I think Mian's kind of reached out to the whole world here. You don't need to hear about what a product owner is or isn't. But this is sort of a little illustration that kind of identifies some of the key things. But the one thing that I want to take away from this one slide is that a product owner needs to be at the center of their stakeholder universe, and that is a quote from Bob Galen, one of the a gentleman that's been a very good friend. Another gentleman, I did some illustrations for his book, but I really enjoy and I embrace that, and I want to talk a bit more about that in a second, because I think that a lot of people think a product owner is some type of superhero that has all the answers, and I disagree. And I think that comes across when Ralph was talking about delegation. So in the middle, if you could sort of glance your eyes in the middle, then we'll move out the way. I like this acronym of Parker regarding product ownership and storytelling, and all these things come at play. A product owner needs to be passionate. They need to be passionate about solving the right problems. They need to be passionate about delighting customers. And if I may, I'm just going to go back here and just sort of remind us of the importance of desirability, viability, and feasibility. We've heard it all before, and if you're familiar with IDEO, it's been around a long time. Now, innovation's meant to sit smack bang in the middle of desirability, viability, and feasibility. But really, I think that's where product ownership sits. But for me, what I'm going to come to saying is that whilst you should be passionate in order to support maybe some of the stakeholders in your world that sort of circle around those areas, it's really important to kind of keep that sustainability and to kind of continuously mine for truth. So be passionate. There do needs to be the correct level of authority, and I think that came across before regarding strategic versus tactical. I think you do need to have the right level of authority to be heard, to be acknowledged, to be listened to. This, of course, for anyone here that's a 70s boy like me, this is a spin on an Oasis song, just so you know. They have the right, they have a responsibility. Now, be that reading the accountabilities in the Scrum Guide, or more outwardly thinking about the responsibilities that a product owner has regarding product management, regarding elements of the internal and external things that are required to make sure that you're continuing to evolve and create the right products. And knowledge, and this is really where I'm getting to. I don't think that a product owner needs to have all the knowledge. In fact, if you think you have all the knowledge, I don't necessarily think mindset for product ownership, because you see, I'm really sure that what the power of not knowing leads to collaboration. If you have all the answers, you don't need collaboration. In fact, if you have all the answers in a non-volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous world, you don't need Agile. So you don't need the answers, but you do need to mine for truth. And hey, you need to be available. Now, I'm not going to talk through everything on this slide here, but reading through, and I know it came up not long ago. I think Milian, you shared something recently. The book inspired by Marty Kagan. It's been around for a long time, very, very long time. But he identifies 10 key things that are important regarding the mindset of product ownership. You know, being genuine, being enthusiastic, sharing that vision. That was a critical thing that came up in the last talk. Sharing pains. And I really do feel that the most important thing that we can do is not focus on solutions, but focus on business problems and customer needs and its pain points that become levers for change. Obviously, your initial responsibility and duty is to be a team player before you think about anything else. I'm going to be talking a little bit about UX and UI and how you can make the intangible tangible, and how I was really inspired. I hope some of you attended John's talk on outcomes before features, and no doubt, you know, it really does help you to think about the right kind of relationships and discussions you have with your stakeholders, being outcome based, being metric based, thinking about risks before you even think about features. But when it comes to prototypes, it's something tangible to say, based on this output, what are we expecting of the outcomes? Sharing learning generously, and all of the other good things that come with it. So telling stories is really key. A week or so ago, I was in Portugal at the Experience Agile conference, where I saw Steve Denning again. And Steve Denning's been a great inspiration to me. And he did a really good TEDx talk on leadership storytelling, and the importance of it. And I think I couldn't agree more. And some of the quotes that he said is that a story needs to be authentically true to wake people out of their complacency. Now, back in the day, when I was a business analyst, I would use, I think value stream mapping's been mentioned, but value stream mapping aligned with doing a lot of those things that a business analyst would do, requiring, you know, statistical analysis and identifying the non-value and value add activities in a process, aligning that to something, you know, called customer journey mapping. I like to blend these tools so we really have an internal and an external front kind of view of things. But putting this all together, I identified that there was like a 0.1% value add ratio in a process, right? Now, it's very simple stuff to do, but it's really important and it tells a story. Now, not every story that you tell needs to have a happy ending, right? Not every story has a happy ending. What you're trying to do is influence, engage, teach, and inspire, right? And that's what this is all about. As a product owner, there's two critical things, right? You need to create a compelling journey, and bring stakeholders on a compelling journey. And you want to bring developers and the team closer to end users. So it's all about storytelling, and it's really important stuff. And like I say, this isn't just for product owners. So if you're one of those people that dabbles with a little bit of Visio process mapping, that's great. If you use service blueprinting, if you're using customer journey mapping, if you're doing story mapping that I'll look at, all of these things, the most important factors are making sure that people are working together on these things, but it's all around storytelling. And you know what? That's all this is all about. That's the critical thing. So I love this quote from Niels Flayling: from idea to innovation takes creativity, and creativity is in the hands of your teams. So keeping the connection under this container of storytelling. As a visualizer, I like to illustrate and draw, but the intent of being creative is to try to encourage people to generate ideas and solve problems. And look, if we look at some of these areas, the motivation for visualization, and be that a product owner or anyone within a product team, it's to enhance team collaboration and accelerate learning. And again, I love the last talk regarding that sort of delegation. And a lot of people are on the fence with this, and there's some people that like or hate it. Personally, I really like the term accountability of a product owner, because I think that whilst the accountability is there, it's really about a cohesive unit of professionals getting across that line. So this collaboration and learning is very much a team sport. But when it comes to visualization and storytelling, some of the things that I've helped with is, again, helping people to participate and engage, And during meetings, your focus is on generating ideas, solving problems, and alignment. And look, right, we know that when we do, we're thinking about, a volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous world. Agility works very incredibly well within software. It's intangible. So by making the invisible visible, going back to what Marty Kagan said about prototyping, it's simplifying complexity, and it's making things clear to see, and it's making it possible to demonstrate things that might not possibly be you're able to demonstrate. So very useful stuff. I'll talk a bit about design thinking later, but again, it's really for me about that diversity of thought and that convergence that you'll get. So look, storytelling, whatever you do, whether it be virtual or in person, that's what we're trying to do here. As far as influencing then, and framing the problem, this again goes back to storytelling. And look, right, a little quote here from Gabrielle Benefield, and hopefully aligned a little bit there to what John was talking about. The goal is to deliver the maximum outcomes for the least effort. So this is what we're really trying to do. Now, again, another thing that I quite like about the latest version of the guide is that it actually has a definition of a product, which is a vehicle to deliver value. And that means that everyone on this course, if you're passionate about product, if you've offered services, if you've worked in social care or schools or education, again, sorry, John, the last time I name drop you, but some of the inspiring things that people like John have done in bringing agility and Scrum into schools. Any of these things that you do, if you're driving value for someone, that's a product. And I really like that kind of the generic approach to that this is for everyone. And again, we're focusing on the right outcomes. So when we know that that's our mindset, when we know that that's our accountability, our role, our focus, our duty, then we can start thinking about the tools and techniques that we need. So this is just a visual that I'll be presenting throughout, but it touches on three key things that I think are really important. One is discovery, and the other, delivery and validation. Again, Ralph was talking about this, interestingly, great, that sort of pyramid he was talking about with regards to strategy and tactics. But I'll talk a bit more about those things in a second. But first of all, I want to talk about that product DNA. And, by the way, as I say, not all product owners have all the answers. It's all about mining for truth. And as Luke Homan would say, it's tools in your toolbox and not a checklist. So the product DNA is really about what are the things that you use that kind of drive you forward, and sort of help to kind of synthesize what you're trying to do and paint that picture. So look, right, when it comes to framing things, I'm not going to talk through these things. You've got the opportunity canvas, you've got the business model canvas, you've got so many different lean canvas. All of these things, if they work for you, use them. If they don't, don't. But we need to find ways in which we bring people on the table. Now, later, again, I'll talk about that divergent, convergent thinking. But one other thing that I find powerful about visualizations such as this is that by using templates like this, what we're doing is we're putting everyone on the same page, right? And so we're embracing a level of convergence whilst we're also enabling people to be diverse with what their thoughts are, where their ideas come from. So framing is really important, and it's another powerful way of storytelling and being creative. So again, look, a lot of these things that I'm showing you, this talk could have been 10 years ago, right? Roman Pichler was once and still is an incredibly inspiring sort of advocate for product, be that product ownership and product management, be it whatever you want to call it. But I think that this is a very well tried and tested canvas. And again, this is enabling and encouraging you to mine for truth. Now, if any of you watch Dragon's Den, any of you there here from the UK, or I think in America you watch Shark Tank, you can watch these very painful moments when someone comes along and says that they've basically been divorced, they've sold the house, they've got no money left, and they've got a really bad product idea. And it kind of, and the dragons or whoever else, the sharks, say, sorry, you're on your own. And you just think, oh, goodness me. But it's very much like this, what is the justifiable reason for doing this work? What are we doing? What is the motivation or for modifying or creating this product? And it touches on what I've mentioned earlier. It touches on that desirability factor. What are the needs of our customers? It touches on the feasibility. Can we build it? And it touches on viability. So it's that repetitive theme of what we're trying to do. Now, the other good thing about this is that something that we often forget to think about, I think, as product owners, is the assumption is we're always creating nice, shiny new things, and we're not focusing on feasibility. The whole purpose of a motivation for working on a product might be cost avoidance. So therefore, you're focusing on refactoring, you're focusing on removing technical debt. You're not creating any new things that will change the customer experience, but you're reducing the waste in the back office. All of those things are so fundamentally important, and that's why we have to be open-minded about how we drive value. But a lot of you also will be working on internal products. So you might be running what I would class as colleague journeys and improving colleague experiences. That happens a lot with a lot of the teams that I work with when I'm coaching. Is usually around these sort of pension providers and lots of banking, whereby it's really about building platforms and trying to support them. So when you look at this target group, don't just assume we're thinking about end users. If you're trying to support and serve a need for somebody who's receiving your value, be it a platform, their needs will be around usability, ease of use, a one-stop shop, and all those types of things. But you also need to ensure that you've got your eye on the ball and you're thinking about your end users. So advancing towards goals, again, I'm not here to talk to you about story mapping and all those different things and road mapping. What I would say is, again, all of these things are encouraging you to do them collaboratively. Story mapping's wonderful, beautiful, but it's useless if you do it on your own. You're creating a narrative flow. You're creating a story, and you're ensuring that you're validating your ideas by working with other stakeholders, engineers, user experience testers, other people that can enable you to think about thinking mile wide, inch deep, and thinking about how we can build on this and create minimum viable experiments. So all of these things are really helping you to sort of drive the need and how we can frame these things. And I think if this has been videoed, I think it's been some really good explanations of what a product goal is. And look, the only thing that is certain here is that we can look at a sprint goal in weeks. But just for sort of clarity, I've put product goals as months and product visions as years. Personally, I think product goals are incredibly useful, and I think of them as these sort of steps on a ladder as we try to reach a vision. And I think that, it's really powerful and useful, because otherwise, if we go straight for, and as Ralph said, really important visions, very, very important. But if the team are just looking at a vision, there's a real disconnect. So that product goal is really enabling us to think about what is that tangible thing that we need to reach. And again, I would be very, very much outcome based to give you the ability to focus on, fixed time and fixed cost and variable scope. What is it? What's the outcome? Outcomes, metrics, and then thinking about the features that we need to do in order to drive that outcome. Okay, so look, I'm just what I'll do is I'll just look into chat, but just to keep us moving. But and I'll keep my eye on the ball. But what kind of things do you use that help you to frame a problem, or to help you that continue to grow? Of course, the product backlog, right? But what kind of things are you using? It'd be interesting to know that are helping you to kind of keeping your product at the heart. Those ever-evolving documents and tools that are enabling you. I'll keep looking just in case anything pops up. And if you've got the question at the end, and I pipe down for a minute, we'll hopefully hear your thoughts then. So innovation. Why innovate? Okay, so we need to be a storyteller as product owners. We need to be an influencer. We need to influence the need for what we're doing, right? We're trying to solve problems. Talking about, oh, actually, before I go any further again, if anyone does want to go to chat, feel free to sort of tell me as well. Another question here. Why do you think, what do you think are the main drivers of innovation? So I'm going to go back one step. Product roadmap with target timelines. Perfect, Margaret. So regarding that last question, absolutely fantastic. And once again, thinking about with roadmaps, thinking about those outcomes and those metrics, and then driving what outputs we might use at those key timelines. I love that. So stepping forward to this bit now, if you've got any reasons what you think innovation is, what are the drivers for innovation, just let me know. But I'll tell you what I think as well. So back in 2000 and I believe it was 19 now. Remind me if I'm wrong. I think that's when the pandemic hit. I'm in the middle of New York, and I was helping to host the Business Agility Conference, and suddenly someone said the words pandemic. Ironically, at that time, the conference was very much about the fact that it takes a crisis to change, and there was lots of very powerful business agility talks. From war-torn countries. It was talking about Sudan and at the time Crimea, and now if we look at what's going on, very little has changed, but it was really about stories that were really saying that, look, it takes a crisis to change. It takes a crisis to think about needing to change. And it was Angel Diaz Moreto that said that agility is not enough. Resilience is key. So for me, I mean, innovation's a buzzword, but agile's a buzzword, right? But it's about survival as well. It's about resilience. Now, the thing is that people don't invest in innovation. Here's a company that does. You might have heard of them, Amazon. And in, if you've got any more updated stats on this, but if you look at this here, if you look at the spend on research and development, and I equate research and development to innovation, right? Discovery and validation. Now, I think that am I right in thinking, maybe I'm wrong, I think the market, I think it's sort of like 60 billion. I don't know, I could be wrong. You can tell me in chat. But if you think about the growth, profit, the market share of Amazon, that's like maybe 10%, or maybe or sorry, that wouldn't make sense, probably 30%. But so I think my maths are wrong. But anyway, it's a lot of money. It's a big investment in research and development or innovation. And I was delivering a CSPO class today, and I was talking about this, and people are like, people don't have the mindset for this. People don't think about having an innovation mindset. People don't invest in this. They have what I would describe as a time to market culture, right? I showed you story mapping. Story mapping is not so that you can release to the market quickly and learn and build an MVP. It's really about minimum viable experiments. It's about learning. And the biggest thing that we need to do is identify what our most riskiest assumptions are. So another really useful way to frame this, once again, looking at that IDEO model of innovation, is something like a business model canvas, right? It's a really, really powerful way to think about our current products and services, as well as business models, and how they need to evolve. Now, this is a nice simple question for you. During lockdown, did your consumption of Amazon deliveries and takeaways, go up? I'm sure that your answers will be yes. That's because of behavior changes. And I think there's a really nice, a sad but positive story is that a company called Intosport. Now they created products and materials and clothing for sports and leisure in schools. And they started to see a great decline in the orders coming through during the pandemic. So what they went on and what they decided to do was make a pivot, and they actually used their capabilities, their internal capabilities, to create hospital scrubs. Now, it's stories like that I find really inspiring. We've also, any of you here from the UK will know that may have heard of a company called Debenhams. Now, Debenhams was a 250-year-old department store that got sold during lockdown for £55 million by a retail store called Boohoo, an online retail. So it's basically, we've always been told, as product owners, you need to think about internal and external factors. So that's why innovation is critical, because as you know, right, as we all know, you're all on this conference because you're passionate product people. We know about the mindset shift between waterfall and agile. We're not going to talk about that now, especially when I've only got about 10 minutes. But it's all about sort of survival and understanding how can we continuously think about internal and external factors. Another great example, Fujifilm identifying that the antioxidants that were used in the anti-aging of photography, of pictures, is the same antioxidant that's used for anti-aging cream, both brought on by UV light. The antioxidants are kind of stopping that. So they've now created a product called Astalift. I'm sure you've heard of it, but really the bottom line is here, innovation doesn't just come from outside, it comes from your own internal capabilities. And on that note, as a product owner, as someone passionate about product, whole product thinking is another tool that's incredibly useful for you to think about, right, where are we right now? What's our expected product? Why do people use this and over that? What are those augmented products? Why will people use our products instead of something else? What are those features? What are those wow factors of yesterday that are today's must-haves? And what are our potential products? As Jeff Patton would once said, we've got to stay in the sustain mode. We have to stay here in the sustain mode. Desirable, viable, feasible is not enough. We need to continuously be sustainable. I'm talking quite fast, so apologies, but I'm conscious that I've not got that long, squeezing a lot in. Another thing that is worth thinking about, and again, it's the mindset and it's the appetite, for innovation, and that is red ocean and blue ocean strategy, right? Why are you trying to compete in industries that you currently exist in when you could create new demands and new things? So these are reasons to innovate. And you know what? Innovation is not something that happens up front. Innovation isn't just something that one team does. Innovation is something that you should be doing all the time. And it's because of survival. And I think the word that I prefer to use when it comes to being product oriented is relevant. Relevance is key. So final little bit, it's about being an explorer. So you've been very patient with me. And I just want to quickly just sort of talk a little bit about this. Now, if I can do this in under 10 minutes, then I'll be happy that I've got another really important thing across the line. It's good to be problem focused, but the problem is in a traditional approach, we go from problem to the degree of achievement or solution. We do not spend time thinking about what it is that the problem is. And if we understand and invested time in discovering these things, there we go. When we think about all these different ways in which we can learn more and not just go straight into development mode, we identify there are more problems and therefore more solutions. So look, when it comes to design thinking, we need to invest more time in discovery, because then we can define what the actual problem is, right? It's only here that we know what the problem is, right? Then we can do some development, right? And then we can deliver something. If you look at this, you've probably got your alarm bells going off, because you're now looking at this and you're thinking, hang on a second, that looks like waterfall. And this is the mindset shift, right? Because you should look at this as a continuous loop. And what we're focusing on is, are we building the right thing, or are we building the thing right? And the left loop, discovery loop, is really talking about markets and market research. Do we know our markets? What about a competitor analysis? Do we really know what's going on out there? Do we know what our customers need? Do we know about market rhythms and market trends? Do we know what's coming? Yeah, that's market research. And then user research is like, how are people using our products, right? And you know what, right? As Mike Cohen once said, I've said a lot of things and I might have been wrong. I remember a good friend, Cheesy, who's in the extreme programming community, and he tapped me on the shoulder when I was many years ago talking about design thinking, before I talked about this loop. And he said, the problem with design thinking is people know they're being tested. It's called the Hawthorne effect, or what a lot of people in the XP community would describe as effective forecasting, right? If you ask someone what they want, they'd say faster horses, right? So the best way to learn that we're doing the right thing is to actually release things. Don't just listen to what people say, observe what they do, the click rate. And this is the difference between discovery and validation, right? That's the difference. So now, if I run out of time and that's the last thing I can say, that's the most important point. Design thinking doesn't happen over there. Oh, thank you. Yeah, innovation, design thinking. Thanks very much, team. See you later. We're the Agile team. We do product. Yeah. Just once you've done all that design stuff, come and speak to us. No, it's constant. And you know, it's taken a while. But if there's anyone here that's telling me that you've got human-centered designers working within the team, or you're very cross-functional, which was brought up earlier, and together you can do this, then I'm happy. But it's a struggle sometimes. Okay, so I'll take a sip of water. John's thinking that guy's still not slowed down. John, I have slowed down, I promise. A little bit more, just a few things here, just on the fact that look, these are all things that you would have seen before. There's lots of things that we have both in that discovery loop, things like understanding personas. Customer journey mapping is beautiful when overlaid with service blueprinting so that you can really see what the problems are beneath. And look, there's just a few things that I was going to say regarding a few more tools and techniques, such as storyboarding, journey mapping, and other things that are important, such as validation and really making sure that you're answering the right questions. But I'm keen that I have a little bit of time at the end to answer your questions. So all I would say is that the synopsis of this is that you need to be a storyteller, regardless of what tools you use. You need to influence, you need to explore, you need to be innovative. And also, you're not a superhero, but you need to mine for truth. 5 minutes left for questions. I'll take a breath.
By the way, we can extend it a little bit. This is the last session. We don't have much, so Stu, you get a little extra time.
Oh, okay. Yeah, Andrea, I don't know, when you say wow, I hope you haven't lay on the floor and thought, whoa, can we have that in slow motion? But look, it would be great to hear what you say. Look, at the end of the day, all of these tools, and I'll close this down in a second. All of these tools, yeah, exactly. All of these tools are just examples, and and this whole idea of this infinity loop and the lingo of a DNA, those things aren't important. The importance is that you're continuously trying to mine for truth and create awesome products. So yeah, any questions at all? Be lovely to hear from any of you. I can do indeed. Yeah. Thank you, Gina. I sleep well. Trust me.
So maybe quick as people are, Stu, if you had to pick one tool, you started and talked about storytelling. Where would storytelling be as a tool in the product owner's toolbox?
I'm going to say that my favorite tool by far is this. This has got so many different lenses. So if anyone's familiar with journey mapping, It's beautiful, it's powerful, and it's a way of also, if you're trying to encourage people to work in a more of an agile way, it forces you to have a to view something from to have an end-to-end business unit view. So if you think that you're just working in one sort of area or section, you have no choice, because value is only received when that person's gone through that journey. So all I would say is, map journeys and listen to people. One other quick thing I would say here is it's very much a collaborative tool, but if you're mapping a current journey, map the as is, and move people away that are looking at the ideal state. Keep them in a separate space, so that when you bring those people back together, you really are able to sort of keep your feet on the ground as you reach for the stars, and then you can look at a 2B. So it's very much a beautiful way of doing that. It also resonates with outcome-based things, because we're thinking about the outcomes. Again, it'd be good if you can hear the recordings from John. I'm sure it's not the features, it's not the moments of truth in the journey, it's the outcome that customer needs. But the reason I like this more so is something I very briefly mentioned, which is service blueprinting. Now, all these things can overlap, but if we're thinking about discovery and delivery, if we're thinking about desirability, feasibility, and viability, a very quick drawing there, then above the line, we're thinking about the customer. Below the line, you can have lots and lots of swim lanes for where do the teams sit? How many systems do we use? What are the processes? What tools are we using? And your mindset, your hypothesis, your assumption is that we've got to improve the customer experience. But actually the value is in cost avoidance or cost reduction. Do you know what I mean? So as a product owner, customer journey mapping enables you to look at it very holistically.
Great. Thank you. And just gave me another thought here. So yes, we will provide access to the recording. What other questions do you have for Stu?
Oh, here we go. Great session and thoughts and guidelines regarding inclusion and collaboration between business. Absolutely. Inclusion. I hope I answer this. Feel free to come off mute if I don't. It would be great to hear your voice. Look, I've been a business analyst and a product owner. They're just roles, right? It's a role. I think it's important to appreciate the fact that a product owner is a sole person, not a committee. I think it gets messy if we start talking about proxies and things like that. But what I would say is that, look, everyone should be included. A product owner does not have all the answers. I think when you go on, you've got to appreciate the importance of teamwork and that cohesive unit. So I struggle with the question because it's all about inclusion. A product owner, as you just heard, all the things that a product owner needs to do, Ralph was explaining. When you think about strategic and tactical, they cannot do that on their own. So I would say that inclusion is all about being open and saying, I don't know. I think there's an anti-pattern with being a subject matter expert in the solution space, in that feasibility space. I think that can actually inhibit you and make you be the why, the what, and the how. So I think if you're passionate and you're not a subject matter expert in the domain space that you're working in, you're probably going to be an awesome product owner. I'm not saying you won't be if you have got that, but just be open and know that you haven't got the answers. I'll catch one more. Any high-level tips on cooperation between product manager and product owner? Again, it might be so high-level positioning and value discovery and creation. Again, I mean, I don't know what Miljan, what you think to this, but it's all about context, right? Depending on the size of the organization, it depends on your relationship with product management, and you might be doing the product management if you're a small outfit. If you're a large organization, then the relationship with product management is slightly different. What I would say is that if you have a traditional product management office or a product manager, they might be more outwardly focused. So what you need to be sort of saying, that product manager you should be saying to them, what are the outcomes that we need? Don't tell me about the solutions. what outcomes do we need? What business outcomes and business and customer outcomes do we need? And encourage them to appreciate that the first sprint goal might be more focusing on discovery and testing a hypothesis and making sure that we're doing the right thing and the investment of those things. So it's all about making sure that we're pitching it in a way that we have the space to solve problems, not build a solution.
Yeah, I think, I mean, you hit it spot on. Do you know any product managers that report to product owners?
Is that a question for me or the person?
Right. Oh, yeah. No, I mean to the person, but I think you know the answer, right? Like in a sense, if you work in a matrix type of structure, most of the product managers are typically closer to the product owner role, how we describe it, than what, you know, and most of product owners are just glorified business analysts. So one way to think about it is what Stu said, is like, how can you have the product manager do their job better? And they're probably not true product owners because they can't really make a decision. They have to listen to somebody else. So take a look at, you know, just what can you do to help them? And I'm actually working on a video. I'm debating if I should share it. It's in a rough, reach out to me personally, that explains this concept and why that is. And really, like, it depends what type of product owner you are, what Ralph was talking about, and your whole approach to how do you deal with product managers. So it's very context specific based on how much authority. The second part of the question is like, use RACI matrix between product owner and product manager and just sit down. It's amazing when you sit down and you list all the things that both you and them have to do and just say, okay, well, let's talk about differences between accountability and responsibility. And let's just go down the list and see between two of us who's accountable, who's responsible for what. And that's usually a really good conversation that clarifies a little bit, regardless of what your title says, you know, what might be helpful for you to work together. And
yeah, it's probably not one for now when we're so, I totally agree, but a lot of things have coming up recently. A lot of people I'm talking to are talking about how there should be no hierarchy, as we know, but sometimes in larger organizations there is. But how do you align? And I think the right way in which we use OKRs can be useful as well, and provide that autonomy for the team, but keep that level of alignment. But making sure that the team are building their own OKRs, they're not built by the product managers. You know, that's another way of getting a level of alignment of how these things sort of the golden thread, I think.